me, Derek, and this is Drew Carey and Sheila. Weird way to start the video, I know, but this was the very first piece of media shown running on an Xbox One ever. The very first active live demonstration of the Xbox One was not a face-melting demo of Forza or Halo or any other hype-generating next-gen video game. It was Drew Carey and Sheila. And it is the moment the Xbox brand died. Or nearly died. And of course, it's not Drew Carey's fault. Or Sheila's. Sorry, Sheila. If fault lies with anyone, it's this guy, Don Mattrick, then head of Xbox. Now, to be fair, this is when it all finally broke, but the implosion of the Xbox brand was a long time coming. From the Red Ring of Death, to the increasingly lackluster exclusives that just did not stack up to Sony's, to the Kinect, their bold-faced attempt to compete with the Wii. The Kinect in particular is mostly a joke today, but it is easy to forget how wildly, unprecedentedly successful it was. 8 million Kinects were sold in the first 60 days. At $150 a pop? I mean, I'm not a calculator. Yo, that is some money. But Kinect's ridiculous success was short-term gain at the long-term cost of pissing off the people who originally made Xbox happen. And then, with Xbox One, the plan was to make Kinect just as much a part of the machine as the box itself. And that box also needed to be online at all times, and wouldn't let you lend games to your friends or buy used games. You cannot take away that much stuff without replacing it with something better or just as cool. And I'll tell you this, easier than ever to stay caught up on The Price is Right is neither of those things, especially with 2013 internet infrastructure being the way it was. Is. But what was Xbox's response to all this?
We have a product for people who aren't able to get some form of connectivity. It's called Xbox 360.
Yikes. Well, fortunately, we have a show for people with some sort of online capability, and it's called Past Mortem, where we break down and explore the stories of video games. And in this episode, we're going to look at the importance of listening to your customers, humility, reading the room. This is the story of the disastrous launch of the Xbox One and the downfall of Xbox. So this video is sort of a part 2 to the Kinect video I made like 2 years ago, but burnout happened and then 2020, and now we're here. So, a recap. The Xbox One launch disaster started way before even the Kinect was a glimmer in Don Mattrick's eye. After it turned out that rushing the Xbox 360 was great for sales but bad for quality, Microsoft pledged over $1 billion to salvage its sagging reputation, and even Microsoft can't slough off a cool billion without answering to shareholders, which meant that Peter Moore got the axe, found another opportunity, conveniently, swiftly getting replaced by Don Mattrick as Senior Vice President of Interactive Entertainment Business. Mattrick didn't come out of nowhere, though. He got his start in the games industry at just 17 by founding Distinctive Software, which handled a lot of Commodore 64 ports for big franchises, before selling itself to EA in 1991 and becoming a millionaire. Look at this, it's baby Mattrick! But let's be real, that's some boss baby energy, because Mattrick ended up being really successful at EA, helping to produce games like The Sims, Madden, and FIFA, finishing up as EA's president of worldwide studios before retiring in 2005. But outside of his professional qualifiers, if you need to know anything about Don Mattrick the person, there's a few anecdotes that come to mind. First, from Seamus Blackley, the quote father of Xbox.
When I first came to EA Canada to present the idea of a Microsoft console, he nearly blocked me from addressing the company because he didn't believe it was possible. It was tense.
Second, and I guess I just want to emphasize this again, this guy has been extremely wealthy since the ripe age of 17. He once owned the largest house in British Columbia, and once at Microsoft would frequently commute to Redmond, Washington via private jet. Something worth knowing, I guess. You know, most people drive to work, or if the drive is too long, they move to the city. That sort of success does something to a person, I think. Third, Don Mattrick is also notable for his reported fondness for name-dropping celebrities in everyday conversation. I saw mention of this in a few places, but for example, in this feature about him in Fast Company, after mentioning that he loves hockey, he just casually mentions the qualifier, especially when I get to play with my friend Wayne. Oh yeah, just some guy named Wayne who plays hockey! Wonder who that could be! Probably just some guy who plays hockey and his name is Wayne! This guy. Basically, Don Mattrick also partially lived in California while at EA, and is still even on the board of the University of Southern California School for Cinematic Arts with George Lucas and Steven Spielberg. This sort of brush with celebrity and pop culture were at the forefront of his mind when he slid in as head of Xbox in 2007. But that was leadership at Microsoft. What was the climate of video games at the time? Well, 2008 was actually in a lot of ways the overall peak of console gaming, and that was due in large part to Nintendo because the Wii was in the middle of a 3-year stretch of selling more than the Xbox 360 and PS3 combined. Sony was in the early throes of recovering from the PS3's rocky launch, largely on the back of Uncharted and a $100 price cut. Initially with the 360, Microsoft saw Sony as their chief competitor, but at this point, Mattrick could safely consider Sony defeated, so he set his sights on the Wii. He used Microsoft's insane resources to build the Kinect, a device that was marketed like it was going to be from Clueless, Stark Industry, or Star Trek, and to be fair, the Kinect did boldly go where no one had gone before. However, the games for it did not live up to the hype. The early 2010s were a weird time, you know, especially for gaming. Like I said, 2008 was the peak, and just as suddenly the console market was in a full-fledged decline, and no one knew what the right move was. Is gaming a cell phone thing now? Are people even gonna want a game when they could just Instagram their Netflix and chill? Now that sounds like a joke, but for real, entertainment is an attention game, and social media, along with streaming and mobile gaming, was rapidly dominating a huge piece of the attention pie. And on top of that, now the Halo company was making games for mom and your kid's sister?
I hate tickles.
Betting on the Kinect kinda made sense. It was the most success the Xbox brand had achieved with a mainstream audience. So successful, it even got Mattrick promoted to President of Interactive Entertainment, a position that reported directly to Microsoft CEO Steve Ballmer. And it made sense too. Sales overall for consoles started going down around 2008, but the 360's peak year was actually in 2011. That is because of the Kinect. I mean, the best-selling game for 360 is not Gears of War, it's not Halo, it's not even Grand Theft Auto 5, it's Kinect Adventures. Kinect was a massive success.
Bye-bye, Wii.
If you ignore the fact that the core Xbox audience hated it, they saw it for what it was, Microsoft taking them for granted in its bid for the so-called casual market. It didn't have the fidelity needed for most games, so while Kinect Star Wars was the gift that kept on giving, it wasn't what gamers wanted from Microsoft. Now luckily, gamers could completely ignore the Kinect if they wanted. There were still Halo, Gears, Fable. Okay, maybe not so much Fable, but 360 was still the destination for Skyrim, GTA 4, and I don't know, all the Call of Duty. Xbox as a brand was still relatively strong, even if it was casting a much wider net. So even for the core gamers, even in the middle of Kinect-A-Mania, there was reason to be excited for the Xbox One. The leaks for the Xbox One, or Durango, or 720, or Nextbox, whatever you want to call it, they came pouring down like a flood. Honestly, it's hard now to look back and catalog all the various rumors that were swirling around, and to identify who or what started when and where, but because it's important to remember the headspace gamers were in once the Xbox One was finally revealed in 2013, we gotta talk about the rumors. As early as 2011, Crytek was rumored to be working on Time Splitters 4 for the Xbox 720, a rumor that hurts my heart, by the way.
I stare at the stars.
To be revealed at E3 2012, which did not happen. Again, this hurts my heart.
And the sky up above.
However, once we get to 2012, the rumor mill really starts spinning at max speed. In January, reports came out that the next box would somehow find a way to lock out used games. There weren't yet any details on how it would be implemented, but it raised a ton of issues, like, hey, how the heck am I supposed to share the hottest games with my kid's sister?
Bye, Skittles. I love you.
During E3 2012, while Microsoft was showing off Halo 4, and Usher, for some reason, we got a full-on leak of the upcoming Xbox 720. The leak painted a picture of a Blu-ray playing all-in-one entertainment console that allowed TV input, was about 6 times more powerful than the 360, and came with a Kinect built in, a box that was the only device needed for the living room, all for only $299. This Kinect would have better accuracy, higher definition camera, and dedicated hardware processing, a cut feature that was basically the reason why 360 Kinect hardly worked at all. The funniest thing about going back and looking at these articles is seeing how positively a lot of people felt about the leak. Not many people in this comments section, at least, focused on the inclusion of an always-on state for the console, and I think the $299 price point didn't hurt. Besides this, rumors also swirled that Microsoft was planning on making a low-cost alternative to the Durango, one that would not play games, making it a competitor to something like the Apple TV or Roku. Things went relatively quiet after this mega leak, though Microsoft kept filing weird patents for stuff like charging extra if the Kinect saw that multiple people were watching a movie in your living room. Just some truly dystopian shit. If you were paying attention, it was becoming clearer that Xbox would continue the trend it had started with the 360 Kinect and move beyond just games. Essentially, the big picture seemed like Microsoft was taking the people who had made Xbox happen for granted, just assuming they'd stick around while Xbox pursued greener entertainment pastures.
How many times have you been watching an episode of South Park and thought, I'd like to be able to watch this on my television while hooked into my mobile device, which is being controlled by my tablet device, which is hooked into my oven, all while sitting in the refrigerator.
But at this point, they still had plenty of goodwill to burn through.
Well, we're not doing that, we're just doing this game.
But what about the competition? Well, Wii U's 2012 launch was a sinking ship, selling far less than Nintendo had hoped, but Sony was gearing itself to come correct. After the PS3's extremely weak launch, Sony was initiating a bold new strategy: games. Beyond great exclusives, their bet on high-capacity Blu-rays was paying dividends by the 2010s, while the aging DVD was kneecapping Xbox versions of games. Hey! Who wants to play a 4-disc version of Wolfenstein: The New Order, huh? Just me? This brings us to February 2013, where we see Sony's strategy in full effect with their PlayStation 4 reveal event, which was a gamer bonanza. Sony didn't show off the console itself, but successfully relied on showcasing upcoming releases to drive hype. It's notable that they locked down Jonathan the Braid Guy Blow,
I really don't know what I'm gonna do to follow up after all those explosions.
who had jumped ship to the PS4 as the exclusive console for The Witness, for the sad fact that Microsoft had apparently just stopped returning his calls. I think that actually says a lot about Microsoft's headspace that they didn't bother to keep in touch with the indie game developer that, I mean for me at least, put Xbox Live Arcade on the map. But Sony wasn't done yet. They ended their presentation with no less than the first public showing of Destiny. You know, Bungie's first game post-Halo? I mean, Destiny would become a multi-platform game, but at the time, there wasn't much more of a shots fired, we are coming after you Microsoft game than that. After the presentation, Sony Computer Entertainment CEO Jack Tretton really hammered it home with this statement.
We're focusing on that core gamer, the gamer who wants the ultimate experience and lives for gaming. If you're not a gamer, I don't think you get it.
Damn! Sony had worked hard to close the sales gap between PS3 and 360, and they were already poised to end this generation on a very high note. This was them using that momentum to launch strong with PS4. Nintendo had taken themselves out of the picture with the Wii U, and rumors were that Microsoft was, well, maybe not putting their best foot forward. At this point, they were just rumors, but I think Sony could smell blood in the water. And this early year presentation was part of that aggressive plan. Again, we are still only in February 2013, but Sony had fired the first shot and the new console war had officially started. And now it was time for Microsoft to clap back. And they did not. This is what gamers had to hold on to for the next few months. On the one hand, they had the promise that Sony was keeping to the strategy that helped the PlayStation recover from the PS3's disastrous launch. On the other hand, there were rumors that Microsoft was going to go full-on Kinect again, which wasn't a good look even if it was only going to cost $299. Well, when there's smoke, there is fire, and reports were flying that the Xbox One would in fact require an internet connection in order to function, which would help prevent the resale of games by requiring a one-time use activation code with each disc, in effect, killing used games or even lending games. Other leaks confirmed that games would be installed directly to the hard drive and the next box would not be able to use a disc once it was installed, in effect, killing physical media. On October 4th, 2013, Kotaku released an article where we got a detailed look at how this was supposed to work according to an anonymous source.
If there isn't a connection, no games or apps can be started. If the connection is interrupted, then after a period of time, currently 3 minutes if I remember correctly, The game/app is suspended and the network troubleshooter is started.
Oh no, that was always online basically confirmed, which felt tone deaf because internet access is spotty all over the world, but especially in the United States, aka Xbox's core customers. And you know what else the US loves? Supporting the troops. And it turns out that having a consistent internet connection is a problem if you are stationed at a US military base.
Thanks Microsoft for making us such a brilliant machine.
So suddenly, fans had a lot more to be worried about than just a little Kinect. If that wasn't big enough news already, on the same day as the Kotaku article, creative director of Microsoft Studios, Adam Orth, broke the cardinal rule of online: never tweet.
Sorry, I don't get the drama around having an always-on console. Every device now is always on. That's the world we live in. #deal with it.
Now, I could unpack that for you, but instead, here are some excerpts from one of the most popular Reddit threads at the time.
As someone who lives in a poor Appalachian area, I have to say this guy is a poor shaming dickhead, and I'd live to punch him in the face.
Yeah, just ensure that I'll be buying a PS4.
If Microsoft insists on an always-on console, it'll make the purchase of a next-gen console easy.
100% agree. I've been with Xbox and Xbox Live Gold for years and spent thousands on games this gen. But if they think that equals brand loyalty, they're dreaming.
Looks like I'll be switching over to PlayStation if this is true. I just don't understand how Microsoft thinks this is a good idea.
I will never buy a system like that.
If Microsoft chooses to force always on onto consumers, I'd imagine the choice would be pretty easy where to go as an alternative. Wish them all the best of luck with their business model.
Yeah, that didn't go over well. Now, rage towards Xbox have been simmering for years. This was just the moment gamers started turning their back on Microsoft, and perhaps, unfairly focusing that rage onto Orth. Now, I'm sure he would have never said this if he had known that it would basically ruin his life. This is the kind of thing you tweet when you do not expect that it'll be seen by millions of people. Apparently Orth was joking, and the friend he was tweeting with backed him up, but just kidding doesn't put out fires, especially after, everything we've already talked about, but also the then recent online kerfluffles with SimCity and Diablo 3. Remember when that was the worst thing Blizzard ever did? Now luckily, Microsoft came out, set everyone down, cleared the whole thing up with a complete retraction.
You want to make sure that you've really set up that console for the long run and making sure you've invested in the right technologies.
No, I'm kidding, of course. They did not do that. I mean, they couldn't do that because, as it would turn out, all those rumors were absolutely true. Microsoft officially apologized for #DealWithTheGate via Major Nelson and then gave Orth the can. Leave him alone, kids. He got fired for that. But unfortunately, deal with it seemed to be the sentiment behind closed doors among the higher-ups.
We have a product for people who aren't able to get some form of connectivity. It's called Xbox 360.
But we didn't know about that yet. And to be fair, I guess Microsoft released an internal memo to Xbox employees about a month after #DealWithTheGate saying this.
Durango is designed to deliver the future of entertainment while engineered to be tolerant of today's internet. There are a number of scenarios that our users expect to work without an internet connection, and those should just work, regardless of their current connection status. Those include, but are not limited to, playing a Blu-ray disc, watching live TV, and yes, playing a single-player game.
Oh man, if I had a nickel for every time I got a memo from the boss that was like, all right team, you know that thing we've been doing? Let's just keep doing that thing. And don't you be leaking this memo to the press or anything. The fact is, Microsoft wasn't directly clarifying nothing. This internal memo was the closest thing we ever got to a clapback. Until there was an announcement that there was gonna be an announcement. But hey, May 21st, and that's only 19 days before Microsoft's big E3 show. Finally, Xbox fans had a time and date to look forward to. I feel like I should point out that Sony had their PS4 reveal 3 months earlier at this point, but hey, I guess that's really how it'll be sometimes. Surely Microsoft being completely unprepared to respond to Sony isn't gonna be some kind of recurring theme or anything. I mean, there are theories out there that it took Microsoft this long to slap together a panic conference after Sony's February event, but at any rate, May 21st came around and the big Xbox One reveal. For my money, Microsoft had 2 big fires to put out. 1, always online. 2, no used games. And before I rewatched this conference for this video, I thought to myself, it cannot be as bad as I remember, but it is somehow actually so much worse. And I got the highlights. Let's do this. It starts off nice enough with a cute video showing off a who's who of Microsoft and this amazing line.
You and your TV are going to have a relationship.
Oh, PR team, really knocking it out of the park with that one. But next we get to see Mr. Charisma himself, Don Mattrick, and it's not so bad.
This is it, Xbox One.
This is it, the peak of the conference. Now, rumor is we can thank Sony for this moment. Microsoft specifically wanted to show the entire console to counter Sony not showing theirs way back in February. And after showing us the console, we get a demo of how the Kinect is always online and listening to us.
Xbox on.
All right, cool. It's on. Now next we're going to see Xbox play games. No, you already saw this. Here we are. The first piece of media they showcase on an Xbox One happens 10 minutes in, and it's the Drew Carey Price is Right. On a gaming console that's supposed to play video games! This is the moment. Drew Carey's dumbfaced and Sheila. Hey Sheila! This is the moment right here that they never come back from. All the goodwill from Halo, through the Red Ring of Death, to the Kinect, to now. Almost 10 years of goodwill finally burnt through. This conference focuses so heavy on TV, movies.
So now I can use Internet Explorer and my cell phone as a remote control, for example, to watch a trailer. And I can even navigate to find movie times and buy tickets.
Yusuf, no, baby, shh, no. You don't use your cell phone as a remote. You use your cell phone, and that's the end of the sentence. And it just keeps going. Not a single video game in sight. We get the obligatory Skype, sports.
And here's how he helps me dominate the fantasy league.
More TV. Oh, then at 20 minutes, we get this.
We're bringing a new Kinect sensor paired with every Xbox One, which puts you at the center of your entertainment.
Okay, so the rumors were true. Every Xbox One was getting a Kinect packed in. And then finally at 27 minutes, we get some games. And it's an EA Sports infomercial, which means the first games they showed weren't even console exclusives. Then finally, at the halfway point, halfway through our hour-long conference, head of Microsoft Games Studios, Phil Spencer, gets on stage looking like an absolute snack. Damn. And we get some Forza, a bafflingly awful, partially live-action commercial for Quantum Break, and the promise of 15 exclusive games. Whoa, the HD fidelity on that PowerPoint slide? Only possible with the power of the Xbox One. Wow. And then we're back to TV. Oh, the structure of this is so bad. I wish I was lying to you. I wish I was re-editing this and lying to you all, but no, this is really what they showed.
We believe that the television screen remains the most relevant, most important screen in the home.
Oh, Phil, no, they got to you too. We get promised a Halo TV show from Steven Spielberg's Amblin Productions. And by the way, not Forward Unto Dawn, not Nightfall, not the anime, no, a brand new Halo show from this guy. Wait, did that ever happen? Was that canceled? Wait, hold on a second. No! You did not miss it, don't worry. And it's scheduled to come out still in 2022, exclusively to Xbox. Oh no, sorry, that's not I'm pronouncing it wrong. Paramount Plus. Noted home of Xbox, Paramount Plus. Thanks, Steven.
Xbox is about to become the next water cooler. And this is only Act 1.
Xbox, go home, you're drunk. So surely that means this train wreck is finally coming to a close. No! More TV! Game-changing football flavor this time. Why does this just feel like an excuse for Don Mattrick to hang out with Roger Goodell? No, but we do get a release date.
I'm pleased to announce.
Okay, me up, Don. Let's do this.
That we'll be launching.
Yeah, all right.
Xbox One.
Yeah, talk to him, Donny.
Around the world later this year.
Yeah, that's how we do it. Wait, hold on. What? That's not a release date. That's not a release date. And they're applauding. You're applauding for later this year? Later this year, and you're applauding. And then we close out with a 10-minute Call of Duty Ghosts infomercial, which again, not even an Xbox One exclusive. I mean, it's a good dog. It's a great dog even, but are we really gonna devote, I don't know, math. 16% of our reveal. Oh, then we faded black. All right. Yeah, no, that's cool. I mean, Sony got to premiere Bungie's first post-Halo game, and you got to premiere the next Call of Duty. What a whimper of a conference. That was really it. A conference that seemed more intent on selling cable TV than actual games. Any questions gamers had about the rumors, backwards compatibility, how used games and DRM would be handled, the always online, is the Kinect monitoring my living room at all times? None of these were explicitly addressed or answered. This press conference should be shown in school as an example of how not to launch a product. Before the reveal, I think Xbox pshawed the outrage around all the rumors, believing that once people saw the official pitch, they'd get it. And I guess they did get it.
Where the video games?
Xbox was taking a game console and making it worse. I don't know how the top brass at Xbox could ignore the imploding of their brand to this point, but it was clear that this reveal was a major flashpoint that sent Xbox scrambling, and luckily the press was on hand to hold Microsoft's feet to the fire. Xbox One, like PS4, was not going to have backwards compatibility. But where Sony was coy with the details, Wall Street Journal got Don Mattrick to say, on record, if you're backwards compatible, you're really backwards. Mr. Charisma at it again. He does bar mitzvahs and children's birthday parties too, folks. Always online and used games became huge sticking points for Xbox One. Wired put out an article that reported that all games were required to install to the hard drive to play, were tied to your Xbox Live account, and that if a disc was used with a second account, that owner would be given an option to pay a fee and install the game that they already owned, holding in their hands. After that article went live, Microsoft cleared the air by clarifying further details were forthcoming, which is PR speak for, we don't know what's happening! Major Nelson also posted a blog saying that customers would be able to resell and buy games, and that if you're at a friend's house, there is no fee to play your game while you are signed into your own profile. Which, I'm not an expert, but that sounds an awful lot like Xbox planned to DRM used games to hell and back. I mean, I say it sounds like it, only because that's exactly what it is, but Microsoft just didn't come out and say it. In terms of always online, Microsoft Corporate Vice President Phil Harrison claimed that some things like movies and playing certain single-player games would work without a connection, which is in line with that memo from before the conference. Alright, that's cool. Apparently that certain word was included because a lot of that would be up to if the publisher wanted to use cloud processing, which would require an internet connection. But again, the option was in fact there. However, when asked about the DRM function of Always Online,
we haven't introduced the details of that today, but like I said, it will be very user-friendly.
Great story, bro. Later that day, Kotaku reported that the Xbox One was required to connect with the internet at least once every 24 hours. And then 3 hours later, Microsoft attempted to walk that back to Polygon, saying that
there have been reports of a specific time period. Those were discussions of potential scenarios, but we have not confirmed any details today, nor will we be.
Potential scenarios, huh? Now there's a phrase doing a lot of heavy lifting. What a mess. It would probably have been a good idea to get everyone on the same page before turning them loose to the press. But hey, I'm just the dumb guy that likes dumb stuff channel. What do I know? Harrison even did re-interviews to try and make it make sense, but quite frankly, it was still a bad look. Clarification and confirmation didn't come until several weeks later on June 6th, where Microsoft summed it up like this.
With Xbox One, you can game offline for up to 24 hours on your primary console, or 1 hour if you are logged on to a separate console accessing your library. Offline gaming is not possible after these prescribed times until you re-establish a connection, but you can still watch live TV and enjoy Blu-ray and DVD movies.
Oh wow, what a concession. Oh, I can still enjoy live TV. Oh, thank you, Malige. I'm gonna get to the rest of the June 6th press release in a second, but hey, I already have a means to watch TV and DVDs. The difference is the games. Now, I am a used game guy. I mean, that's how I got the majority of my games, but even I was not the only one asking, how could Xbox One possibly make my life better? Microsoft's position was basically that they wanted to move games to a digital format, but they still had to keep those discs around because It was 2013! It was 2013! That was way too early to attempt to kill discs. Or if you're going to kill discs, gotta give me a good reason why. And so far the best you got is Drew Carey and Sheila. Hey Sheila. No, I almost forgot about this. About that live TV, it wasn't even gonna be available outside the US at launch, and there wasn't even a timetable for when it would be. In hindsight, it was ridiculous, and at the time it was ridiculous. How ridiculous? Wii U sales shot up by almost 400% on Amazon after the Xbox One conference. And also, what about our old buddy, the Kinect? Well, beyond Microsoft packing them in with every console, they also upgraded it with a wider field of view and better camera. They were also claiming that it would have unprecedented fidelity, precision, and accuracy for games. Something we'd heard many times before. It made sense to be skeptical, especially when the Xbox One reveal conference was responsible for activating people's 360 Kinects and killing the live stream.
Go to Internet Explorer.
Okay, but the Xbox One Kinect was going to be better, and it was going to always be listening, especially for voice commands. On that front, Harrison said this to Eurogamer.
We aren't using Kinect to snoop on anybody at all. We listen for the word Xbox on and then switch on the machine, but we don't transmit personal data in any way, shape, or form that could be personally identifiable to you unless you explicitly opt into that.
And while Harrison said they don't transmit personal data that can be connected to you, that certainly doesn't mean they aren't collecting it. It was enough to make people not want to deal with the Kinect altogether. However, they didn't have a choice, with Harrison even calling the Xbox One and the Kinect one and the same. Xbox One, Kinect. Chicken, egg. So people were pissed about the Kinect, but it wasn't talked about on the same level as the always online or used games issue. At least not yet. Microsoft must have realized their messaging needed some work because they released what could only be described as a flurry of press releases on June 6th, just 4 days before the big E3 conference. Even going back to all these press releases now is confusing, but I want us all to be on the same page as Microsoft going into E3, so here's the gist. 1. The console must connect to the internet every 24 hours. 2. Xbox One will allow used game sales, but only at participating retailers and only if the publisher allows it. 3. Not only will gifting and loaning your games be restricted, lending your games won't be available at launch. But lastly, you can turn the Kinect off if you want to. You can turn it off. I'll give them that. That is a W. You can turn the Kinect off. That was the best they got. I assume this was their attempt to get ahead of the news cycle so that E3 could just be a hype-generating bonanza. Unfortunately, all of this was confusing and mostly bad. Plus, guess what happened literally the day before the big conference?
The man who sent the Obama administration into defend and explain mode this week, his name is Edward Snowden.
We now know that the government has been actively collecting an unprecedented amount of information.
That phone in your pocket right now might be a government spying device.
Today he came out as the leaker of classified NSA documents.
Yes, Edward Snowden came forward to reveal PRISM, the NSA's massive global surveillance program. A program Microsoft was complicit in, by the way, though that wouldn't be revealed for another month. I don't know if people watching this really remember the Edward Snowden saga, as the concerns it sparked about privacy seem a little quaint compared to what's happened since. But for months, it was the biggest news story in the world, especially in the United States. Suddenly, being spied on was at the forefront of everyone's mind.
I bet the Amish are feeling pretty smug right now.
Just in time for Microsoft to make good on Xbox One and the Kinect. You literally can't write this stuff. If this were a movie, no one would believe that Snowden happened literally the day before their second big press conference, but that is just how wild this story gets. It is barely June and already Xbox was on fire and in desperate need of some kind of course correction. Luckily, they had an opportunity. It was time for the Electronic Entertainment Expo, the highest profile gaming event of the year, and it was make or break time for Xbox. Finally, it's time for the reveal for the gamers. E3 2013, baby. That last one, it doesn't even count. This one, E3, this was their chance to set the record straight and all eyes were on Xbox. This would be their third or fourth great time to reverse course or come correct with a coherent, honest talk about everyone's concerns with the Xbox One. And how'd they do?
And as we've been promising, it's all about the games.
And to be fair, this presentation was all about the games. But it was also still a disaster. This was Xbox's chance for some, I don't know, radical honesty, intense groveling, but of course they weren't prepared to do that. Or maybe they thought their press release dump back on June 6th was enough. Instead, the whole thing just felt like a typical E3 press conference, complete with hype for new games and embarrassing technical difficulties.
The demo features dynamic gameplay that can happen only in Battlefield.
Okay, let's be honest. Technical difficulties at E3 press conferences are not rare. And here, it's just the sound cutting out. That's not even close to the worst thing that can or has happened before. However, it is rare to hear people heckle like this. Alright, so I'm not going to do a deep dive on this presser like I did for the initial reveal, because the things it does wrong aren't in the press conference. Really, it's about what wasn't in the conference, the stuff they tried to dance around with their June 6th info dump. The one exception, though, would be the Xbox One's price, which was announced by Phil Spencer at
$499 in the US, and 499 euros in European markets.
Wow! $499. You know, that reminds me of something. That's right.
$499 US dollars and 549 Canadian dollars.
Furthermore, not only was that a full $200 higher than the most expensive 360 at the time, it was also, if you'll remember, $200 more than what many had predicted. You could actually hear how shocked the audience was.
£429 in the UK.
And then they're like, oh, that's right, we're supposed to clap. Oh God. Woof. That price took things from bad to worse. In fact, I would say that this, from the cascades that started with Drew Carey and Sheila, sorry Sheila, was the actual moment the Xbox brand died. But nope, as you'd know if you'd watched that year's most popular show, things can always get worse. PlayStation's big E3 conference was just 6 hours later. You cannot write this stuff. And Sony played it cool at first, showing off games, bragging about specs, typical E3 stuff. But then, things got interesting.
For instance, PlayStation 4 won't impose any new restrictions on the use of PS4 game discs. Headshot. When a gamer buys a PS4 disc, they have the rights to use that copy of the game. They can trade in the game at retail, sell it to another person, lend it to a friend, or keep it forever.
Double kill.
In addition, PlayStation 4 disc-based games don't need to be connected online to play.
Multi-kill.
PS4 won't require you to check in online periodically.
Ultra kill.
And it won't stop working if you haven't authenticated within 24 hours.
Unstoppable.
Seriously, we had to cut out so much cheering. I encourage you to watch it for yourself. It is just 2 solid minutes of an audience losing their minds. And then, a few minutes later, the death blow, the fatality, the price.
I'm very proud to announce that PlayStation 4 will be available at $399.
Godlike.
That's right, the PlayStation 4 would be a full $100 cheaper than the Xbox One. Sony literally coming out bullet point by bullet point in their conference to say to gamers, hey, we're the good ones.
But at PlayStation, concepts like true consumer ownership and consumer trust are central to everything we do.
Every single misstep that Microsoft made, Sony was there to capitalize. And they weren't even done twisting the knife. Later that night, they dropped the most savage commercial I've ever witnessed.
This is how you share your games on PS4.
Thanks.
Holy sh!
Can you believe this was an era where the killer app was lending games? That is patently ridiculous, but this is what Microsoft did to themselves. It was over. Drew Carey and Sheila, sorry Sheila, you didn't sign up for this. That was the moment that Xbox lost, but for me, this commercial was the moment that PS4 won. It is the most brutal E3 takedown since Sony buried the Sega Saturn with a simple $299. The sad thing is that it wasn't over yet. The next day, Mattrick had the opportunity to do interviews to set the record straight, to come out as the face of Xbox and right this ship. After the beating they had taken the night prior, Mattrick would have no choice but to bare his soul to consumers and let us know that there would be some serious soul searching going on in the next several days. It was time for Microsoft to make some serious amends, and Mattrick was just the man to do it.
Team Xbox is on a new mission.
Okay, I'm kidding. That did not happen.
Fortunately, we have a product for people who aren't able to get some form of connectivity. It's called Xbox 360.
Right. So stick with 360. That's your message if you don't, like it?
If you have zero access to the internet, that is an offline device.
Wow. You saw it. I'm speechless. How can someone be so thoroughly detached from their audience, from their brand, that they could think that this would be okay? I mean, after months, weeks and weeks of his loyal customers berating and pleading for a change of course. Like, he obviously knows about that, right? Otherwise, you wouldn't be gaslighting Bloomberg with this, actually, we're over-delivering value with the Xbox One. I mean, he fired Adam Orth over the outrage. And I guess that was for nothing? There's just no way to explain this, except maybe he's checked out. Maybe Don just didn't care anymore. I mean, this is a guy who's been insanely successful since the Smells Like Teen Spirit music video. He's probably used to winning and being good at his job. I mean, Madden, FIFA, The Sims, and then the Kinect. I'm sure he's experienced failure before, but not on a scale like this. I can understand why he'd rather be thinking about greener pastures. The writing was on the wall, and the brand that Microsoft had spent billions building was basically as good as done. But luckily, it wouldn't come to that. On June 19th, 10 days after the disastrous E3 press conference, Xbox sobered up, took a cold shower, and completely reversed its DRM policy. For what it's worth, Mattrick signed his name to it at the time, though part of it still feels, a little reluctant.
Guess you guys aren't ready for that yet.
It was still a complete about-face. No more always online, and games will be tied to discs that you could sell and trade as you please. That's what we in the biz call the old Xbox 180. It has got to be the biggest backtrack in gaming history, this side of Resident Evil 4 being a GameCube exclusive. But that's not the only Xbox 180, 360, 720 backtracking that happened. Yep, on July 1st, just 22 days after that E3 conference, Don Mattrick pulled a Peter Moore and found another opportunity. Yeah, he bounced. Reportedly, he signed a contract to be the CEO of Zynga, you know, the Farmville people, on a Friday and announced it to everybody on a Monday. And no one at Microsoft seemed to know beforehand. They didn't even have a replacement ready. Dude literally destroyed the Xbox brand and 20 days later took off like he left a fart in an elevator. The audacity of this man! By the way, he ended up leaving Zynga less than 2 years later, if you're wondering how that went. So anyway, Steve Ballmer, the CEO of Microsoft, had to step in as head of Xbox, but he was already almost out the door himself. Things were clearly a mess at Microsoft. By August, they just casually announced in an IGN Q&A that not only would the Xbox One work without the Kinect turned on, it could be unplugged all the way as well. Boom, just like that, the Kinect was no longer required for the system. Pressure had been mounting for months, of course, but after Snowden, no one was excited to have this cute $100 robot that seemed to exist primarily to listen to your conversation in case you happen to say Xbox on. Of course, the Kinect was required in some sense. It still came with the Xbox One, and you still had to pay $500 for the whole package, and Microsoft still insisted it was essential for the console. And I'm sure most of you know how this story ends. In November 2013, Xbox One launched, and despite neither system really having great launch games, it was vastly outsold by the PlayStation 4. It would appear it was about more than just the games. There would never be a moment where Xbox One sold better than the PS4. By May 2014, Phil Spencer was the new head of Xbox, and Microsoft launched a new Xbox One without the Kinect for $399, same price as the PS4. To put that in perspective, Mattrick's vision for Xbox's future started with the Kinect, which launched in holiday 2010. But despite its amazing success, just 3.5 years later, his mark was almost completely erased. And this is just anecdotal, but in all my thrifting trips, I see Xbox 360 Kinects all the time. But I honestly cannot remember the last time I've ever seen an Xbox One Kinect at a thrift store, and I live in Seattle. Apparently, Satya Nadella, Microsoft's new CEO, floated the idea to Spencer that they just give up on gaming on Xbox altogether. But Spencer still believed in Xbox.
If we're going to stay in the gaming space, then let's make sure we're all in. The last thing I wanted to do was run the gaming organization here as a kind of afterthought of the company and kind of half in, half out. Let's go fix who we are.
For E3 2014, Xbox published a feedback form where fans could directly call for new features to Xbox, and went hard on messaging themselves as all about gamers. From there, Xbox would backtrack on more and more of Xbox One's initial initiatives. The Kinect was finally taken out behind a barn and put out of its misery in October 2017, but not before E3 2015, when Xbox went from backwards compatibility is backwards to this.
Today, I'm pleased to announce Xbox One backward compatibility.
Just listen to that crowd. Now that is reading the room. Of course, that was the end of the Kinect, but the story of Xbox lives on. Let us know if there are any more topics you'd like us to deep dive on for another episode of Past Mortem. Are there any more Xbox topics? We've done 5 big-ass videos on the Xbox. Maybe it's time for Sony or something else to have some time in the sun. This video was written by producer Grace with help from myself, Cass from Bad Game Hall of Fame, and Sober Dwarf. It was edited by Sober Dwarf with some finishing touches by myself. And I want to thank, in order of appearance, our special voiceover cast: Super Bunny Hop, Botchamania, Mother's Basement, Re-Res, Epic Game Music, Mom Milf, OSW Reviews, Miss Fushi, Autumn Ivy, H-Bomber Guy, and the notorious Matt McMuscles. And of course, as always, our Patreon supporters. Those pledges really help us, take our time with videos like this to make them these deep dive videos. This is our longest video ever. And that was your fault. That sounded like an insincere laugh. I don't know why.
No, it was real.
And also I want to thank anyone who ever asked over the last year and a half or so, whatever happened to the follow-up to the Kinect video? Hope it was worth the wait. We have a stacked lineup though for the rest of the year. So hey, comment, share, subscribe, tell a friend, and stay powerful, because we'll see you again really soon.